Hello YouTube, Hamster here, the TechRodent with a TechRodent review of the Lenovo S920, Lenovo's phablet for the more budget-minded crowd. Now, what exactly does 639 Malaysian ringgits, or the equivalent of 192 US dollars, get you? Let's talk a little bit about specs, shall we? Inside, you will find a MediaTek MT6589 processor clocked at 1.2 gigahertz. Your RAM is only restricted to 1 gig of RAM, and you only have 4 gigs of internal storage. Alright, but luckily enough, Lenovo is giving you a micro SD slot down the back, in which you're able to put in up to a 32 gig micro SD. Let's take a look around the device, shall we? Well, up the front you have a 5.3-inch panel. It's a IPS LCD panel. You have capacitive buttons. You have the front-facing camera together with the sensors and the earpiece. Up the left is blank. Up the right, you have the volume rocker. Up the top, you have the headphone jack, the power button, and a little flap which opens up. And I'm not sure if you can see it, but it reveals the USB slot. Taking a look at the back, actually let's take a look underneath. You only get nothing. Let's take a look behind, and you have the Lenovo branding together with the 8 megapixel rear camera and a LED flash. You have the secondary microphone, if I'm not mistaken, and a speaker grill which has a little notch over it which prevents it, when lying fully flat, not sure if you can really see it, from blocking the speaker. Let's peel up the back, shall we? Now, up the back of the device, you will find a 2250 milliamp hour battery, together with a micro SD slot and a dual SIM slot. Now, one thing to note, however, is that the SIMs, well, only one of them does 3G, as noted from the top. So the left one does 3G and 2G, whereas the right one does 2G only. This means that you probably want to put your voice calling SIM on the right and your data/voice SIM on the left. Let's pop that back up. And let's talk a little bit about the build quality, alright? So far, I've had this device for a while. I was a bit slow to pop up this review, but it is a really nice device. It has a really matte finish at the back. The sides and the body click in really well, such that it almost comes off as a seamless unibody design. Alright, this is how well it clicks together despite how many times of opening and closing. And overall, I'm really happy with what Lenovo has done here, given the price constraints of this product. Alright, so let's power it on and let's see if the insides are the same case. So up front, you get the Lenovo branding, followed by a boot animation and some boot noises. Now, if you notice already, if it looks a little bit funny, that's because I've got a matte screen protector on it. It's not the best screen protector, but hey, it works, Now, overall, I've used this phone for a bit just as a tester device, and I have to say that I'm very pleased with the performance of the device. User interface and navigation is really smooth as compared to even the other devices out there with 2 gigs of RAM, with 32 gigs of storage, and with the MT6589T processor. Now, I chalk this down to the fact that Lenovo actually has a software team to develop custom software for their devices rather than more standardized Chinese devices like the reviews I've done before of the Zoppo ZP980 or the iOcean X7 Elite. They have a bit more of a default kind of run-of-the-mill Android device, which is not exactly catered specifically to their device. So they don't get the most optimized experience. But as you can tell, usage experience is beautiful and smooth. Inside, you will find that this device runs on Android 4.2.1, Jelly Bean. Oops, wrong side. Version info. There we go. For Android 4.2.1. And if you haven't noticed already, it has its own kind of spin on the user interface, which kind of looks similar to MyUI, but I assure you it's not MyUI, and you can tell that it's really nice and smooth just navigating back and forth, and you can sort of swipe across. It kind of has a little bit of jerk before that, hitting into the character screen, but other than that, it's pretty good, Let's head out to the home screen and preloaded software. Let's talk a little bit about preloaded software. Alright, because I can't say I'm the happiest person with this. It's got a ton of games installed by default. It's got Asphalt 7, it's got, Little Big City, it's got Block Breaker. I mean, it's a bit unnecessary in my opinion because of the 4 gig of internal storage, which by the time I installed my benchmarking applications, I was only left with, check that out, 1.08 gig available of built-in storage there, and only 317 MB left for applications, which is kind of a little bit sad. Then again, you do have your micro SD slot. Well, let's take a look a little bit at the specifications as well. I forgot to mention, the front panel is a 1280 by 720 display. Let's go to device info, and that is sort of similar to ones you'd find in a Galaxy Note 2, except that the Note 2 has a 5.5 inch panel and AMOLED. In this case, even though it's a 1280 by 720 resolution on a 5.3 inch device, it's really difficult to discern the pixels on the screen, and as a budget device, I think it is plenty enough fine. So everything checks out. You got the rear casing 8 megapixel camera. You've got the GPU, the CPU, which I've mentioned before. You've got the memory. Runs at a top speed of 1.2. Your GPU, which is a PowerVia SGX 544 single core. And that's pretty much it, apart from the fact that it has a 1.9 front-facing camera. Benchmarks. Well, for the purpose of time saving, I'm not going to run most of the benchmarks on the fly because it takes too long. But I will show you the details. I've ran this before and I got a very decent score of 13,740. Now, obviously, this is still slightly lower than, when I tested the iOcean X7 Elite. But in my opinion, this phone has a smoother operation than most of the other Chinese phones out there. And it just shows how important software is. And it's just not about pure hardware in the end. So as you can tell, this is the individual scores for anyone who is interested. The same went for... Now, where is that application? Mark. Oh, there we go. Sorry, I was slightly blind for a moment there. And, let's see. That's the scoring which I got for Ice Storm, Ice Storm Extreme, and Ice Storm Limited. Not a bad scoring, but still not exactly the best of scores. The one I'm going to show you, which is live, however, will be Epic Citadel. Now I'll run this on the high quality settings just to show you guys how it's like, or what it's like. Epic Games. Sorry. Sometimes I just can't help myself. Alright, so let's run the benchmark, shall we? As you can tell, there's sort of a 65 FPS frame rate cap, and performance is really good. What I'm trying to say is, if you have games, they're probably not going to be much of a problem running on this device. But the only drawback I would see is games which are slightly more taxing on the CPU front, or maybe not as coded as well as Epic's Citadel. But yeah. Oh, it stuttered for a moment there. Alright, so the benchmarks results are in, and you're looking at an average of 57.9 frame rates per second on high quality mode, and I think that is really, really impressive. Then again, it only has to drive a 1280 by 720 display, but come on, it's not exactly a bad display, so go easy on it. Connectivity wise, a lot of people have been talking about the MT6589 being really bad at connectivity, and I have to disprove on that because I think that has more to do with the way the hardware is designed, which is then again it comes down to the R&D department. A lot of Chinese phones manufacturers don't have the amount of power to spend on hardware R&D like Lenovo has, and it reflects in their connectivity. As you can tell, I'm getting full bars for my Wi-Fi signal, and this is pretty much the case even at further distances away from the router. I'm able to get the same amount of signal pickup as a Galaxy Note 3, and almost the same could be said for my mobile signal, which is generally good all the time. GPS is a beautiful story as well, as I get a GPS lock in under 5 seconds, and navigation is no problem, as well as accuracy is down to 3 meters. Now this is circular battery mod, which pretty much calculates how long it's been since you last charged your device, and you can tell the last time I unplugged it was 77 hours ago. Dang. Let's see, the last thing I want to probably touch on is the camera, as it is Lenovo's own super camera. Now, you can read the full review on this camera on my website, but as far as this YouTube video is concerned, all I have to say is that I'm very, very pleased with the video quality that comes out from this camera in itself, as as in most situations, I get really high, nice quality photos. But the only drawback being that they can be at times a little bit noisy. So I guess that's it for this review. And if you enjoyed it, say thanks, subscribe, and for the full review, check out my website. Thanks for watching.